Further comments? Victor?
Mayor, I do think the issue of the resources that the Humane Society dedicates to the low-cost services is important. And so I would ask for a report back within a year to see if in fact, those resources have been increased. I also think the baseline that we have now, in other words, how many dogs have received services in our city through the Humane Society or one of the vendors or mobile clinics that they contract with. I think the baseline is important, so I'd like staff to report back to us how we've done in a year in terms of how many dogs or animals have been spayed or neutered, and what the percentage is of low cost. In other words, how many were accomplished through a low cost service. I think that baseline is also important, and it's important to keep track of those numbers to see precisely how effective this ordinance is. And so I would ask that the staff work with the Humane Society to establish the appropriate baselines on all of those issues and then come back and report to us.
Do members of the council accept the suggestion that Mr. Gortho has made in regard to further information about the ordinance?
Mayor, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is a significant ordinance. Let's see if it's working. Let's see what it's doing. So I support Victor's suggestion. I do have a question, because a question has come up from a couple of people in the came up from Ms. Dove and some other people about if there is a dog who is subject to an exemption, it's an agility dog, or it's somehow subject to one of the a responsible breeder, or subject to an exemption, and that dog gets out, everybody's dog gets out, sometime, and is picked up, and so that dog who is licensed but is subject to the exemption gets picked up by the Humane Society and taken in. Will that dog automatically be spayed or neutered, or will there be record of its exemption and it will be returned to the owner intact?
The dog would be returned to its owner. It would not be subject to mandatory and spay and neuter. It may be subject to fines for having the dog run loose, but there is no mandatory requirement for neutering.
With our previous report regarding the park and the talk about restrooms, it's approaching, physically that's attacking me a little bit. And also the fact that we didn't talk about a dog park in that park itself. But there is some information that's come out that is absolutely, totally wrong. One individual said they looked at our 990s, our tax returns. Obviously does not know how to read the 990s. Last year alone, we have put well over $250,000 into a spay and neuter program. And as you know, she's talking about the assets of the property at $10 million, and we've just completed a $20 million project, of which $5 million was dedicated towards a spay and neuter hospital for the public at a reduced rate and low income. So that's all I have to say. I mean, I understand where the breeders are coming from. The ordinance is drafted with the points that there are exemptions in place. If somebody's out of town and their dog is picked up by the Pasadena Humane Society, it's not going to be neutered on the spot. That owner will have an opportunity to come and claim that animal and get that animal out of our custody. Hopefully they will come and do that, but I'm hoping that that animal will also be licensed or microchipped or have an identification on it so it can go back to the owners. That's it. Case closed. Otherwise, if one litter is allowed to go in this city and be euthanized because we don't have space in our shelter to keep it, that's wrong. And that's why this ordinance is drafted. I applaud you for doing this. The State Humane Association of California applaud you for doing this. California Animal Control Directors Association applauds you for doing this. And thank you very much.
Mayor, if I may have a
Mr.
question.
Gordo?
Mr. McNall, I think the issue of setting baselines in the categories that I outlined is important, and I think you'd probably agree, just so that we don't have misinformation, and so that we have complete transparency. And so I would ask that you work with our staff to set those, to provide the information so we can set the appropriate baselines and then measure the effectiveness of the ordinance.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
If there are no other comments or questions from members of the council at this time, Mr. Jomsky, will you take a vote?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Gordo?
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy is absent. Councilmember Madison?
Yes.
Councilmember Masuda?
Yes.
Councilmember McAustin?
Yes.
Councilmember Tornick?
No.
Councilmember, Vice Mayor Robinson?
No.
Mayor Bogard?
Yes?
The motion passes 5 in favor, 2 against.
Thank you very much. Thanks to our staff, who has worked so hard to formulate the right proposal for us on this matter. And we will look forward to further information about how the ordinance is working in the real world.